But you can pop those in anytime. I am planning to leave a fair amount of time at the end to answer questions. So please feel free to pop those into the chat. Right. And let's go ahead and get started here. So, welcome. Tonight, I'm doing a little webinar for people on starting an obesity medicine practice. And we're going to talk about what that means in a few different ways. I'm Carolyn Francavilla Brown. I'm a family physician and obesity medicine specialist. And our goals tonight, there was a lot of chatter in Facebook groups and Facebook chats about, how to get started, how to do telehealth, where to work. And so I wanted to just do kind of a high overview today, get you thinking about what's the right direction, and then open to questions. So we'll start putting the seed in your head of exploring your reasons for practicing obesity medicine. We're going to explore what those options are and dabble in the idea of what starting your own practice can look like, and then leave lots of time for Q&A. So a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Carolyn Francavilla. I'm a family physician and obesity specialist, and I knew I wanted to do obesity medicine during my family medicine residency. I did my CMEs while I was still a resident, took my family medicine board, and then took my obesity medicine board. And I was even practicing obesity medicine during my residency. I had sort of a mini obesity program within my family medicine clinic. A year into employed practice, I decided to start my own practice. And so, 1 year out of residency and 7 months pregnant, and with a big house payment, I started my own practice. And I like to share that because when people are thinking about starting their own practice, they always have lots of reasons why they can't do that. And I feel like if I did that in the situation I was in, probably anyone can do it. I did start with a business partner. We were primary care with a focus on obesity, a traditional insurance practice. I became the sole owner. We now have 3 other physicians that sort of work for me as contract workers and 1 nurse practitioner. And then over the last year or so, we have transitioned to a membership model on top of taking insurance. I'm on the Obesity Medicine Association Board of Trustees. I'm on the AMA Private Practice Physician section as their chair-elect. I have a course called the Obesity Medicine Startup Course and Toolkit. I have a mastermind, I do private coaching, and I have a podcast on weight and health, which is for the general public, though a lot of healthcare providers seem to like it. And really, my mission is to help train clinicians to treat obesity comprehensively, as well as to help physicians have independent practice if that's what's right for them, or if not, to practice medicine on their own terms. Okay, so let's get started on you. When you're trying to decide how to start your obesity medicine practice, I always like to start with knowing what your why is. Why do you want to do this? And so you might take a moment to think about this now, but this is something that I really think is essential to driving the right decisions that you make. And some of those reasons might be you just have a passion for this, right? You love treating obesity, you just want to make lives better for your patients. You've really fallen in love with the practice. Maybe you are seeing this as a change in your practice and that it'll improve your own lifestyle. Maybe you're burned out in your current profession. Maybe you want better work life balance. Maybe you want a financial change. Maybe your current role in medicine is not paying you the way you deserve to be paid, and you see opportunity in this field. Maybe you want more autonomy. Maybe you're currently employed and the idea of working for yourself is really appealing. And it might be a little bit of all of those things, right? But when you're trying to make decisions for your life, but for your business, you want to know what your core value is for that business and your mission statement. And so that's something that really diving into your why helps you develop. So my why has usually been more on the side of autonomy, practicing on my own terms. And so that has driven a lot of the decisions I make for how I run my practice and how I, make choices for my business. If my first priority was making as much money as possible for my practice, I would do things differently. If my biggest was my lifestyle, I would do things differently, right? And so there's a little bit of all of that, but knowing what your core value is helps you make business decisions. And so if your value really is that you just want to practice obesity medicine, and the other things, the autonomy, the lifestyle change, money, things like that are less important to you, you may decide that staying where you're at and just becoming a really good obesity clinician is the best way to do that. If you really just want autonomy, you want your own practice, then that may, come at, less financial security for a little while. So those are all the values that kind of go into it. And I really encourage you to explore that and know what your reason is for what you're doing. And it can change, our values change over time, but it really helps you make your decision. And when I do deeper coaching on this, we use this in a sort of a funnel model where we take our core values to really truly make any decisions for our business with applying some other business principles, and it really helps you make the right decision. So I'll give you an example from my own practice on how this why is helpful. A couple of years ago, as we were coming out of COVID, and we were having inflation and insurance rates weren't changing, I looked at the practice and I said, this is not going to be sustainable. The doctors are not going to be happy, making the amount of money they're making with the insurance companies, or something has to change. And so there was a couple options. We could start seeing more patients, and maybe not practice quite on the way we wanted to, but make more money that way. We could join like an ACO and maybe do some metrics, and earn additional money by checking some boxes. We could add a membership fee. We could stop taking insurance altogether and go cash based. And when we viewed that through the lens of our values as physicians at our practice of sort of autonomy and practicing on our own terms and treating patients how we wanted to be treated as sort of our core values, then we decided a membership model was the thing that made the most sense for our practice and our values. It didn't mean the other decisions were wrong. They were great business decisions. They weren't the right one for our practice. So that's where knowing what your why is for what your practice is I think powerful. Okay, so, what are your options for those of you who are maybe newer to obesity medicine and trying to figure out what to do? Well, one option that can work for a lot of practices is just going to be to integrate obesity medicine into your current practice. And so that may mean just creating an obesity medicine track. Another option is going to be to go ahead and do this as a side gig for a while. Maybe you keep your main job and you do the obesity medicine thing on the side while you are getting your feet under you. And maybe it just becomes a side thing forever, or maybe that becomes your main job. You could look for employment. This is not advice I could have really given you 2 years ago or more, but now there are lots of jobs for people in obesity medicine, largely with big telehealth companies, but there's jobs now, right? There used to be you had to do this on your own, or there really wasn't much option. There are jobs now. Maybe you start a micro practice, which means it's probably just you, maybe you and a virtual assistant. Maybe you start a traditional practice where you have multiple staff members, eventually multiple clinicians. And maybe you integrate into another clinic. Maybe you join a bariatric surgery clinic, an aesthetics clinic, an endocrine clinic, and you offer your services within those clinics. So, those are some different options of how you could start practicing obesity medicine. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about integrating it, because I think that's a good way to kind of highlight how I practice obesity medicine for those of you who maybe don't really know how you want to integrate this into the real world yet. And the first thing is that I kind of work through 5 components. So I look for identifying underlying causes. Why is this person struggling, right? We all know metabolic and appetite adaptation, but what else? What's contributing to this? And are any of those reversible? Customized nutrition plans, medication therapy, of course, helping patients pick and navigate the right medication and mitigating side effects, exercise counseling and support there, and then all the behavior change therapy, right? So those are the 5 components of what I do. And so when I integrated that into family medicine, I had to have a dedicated appointment for that. So for those of you who are just integrating this into an existing practice, you want to advertise this is a new thing I'm doing. It does take attention and focus. Let's do an appointment that is specifically focused on your weight. So I would always do that, do the intake, and then I'd usually do a second appointment that was also focused on weight, where we would start the med, go through a nutrition plan, and hit on all 5 of those elements. And then I would follow up monthly for 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year, and then start gradually going to closer to 12 weeks and kind of usually try to hit all 5 of those elements. And then once people hit maintenance, I had a special maintenance visit we would do, and then follow up sort of every 3 months indefinitely in some way, checking in on all of those 5 elements. So that's the structure of, how I have always practiced obesity medicine. And that structure can stand alone, or again, it can be integrated into an existing practice type. I think it is important to have like clear appointment types. So, like, this is our intake appointment where I'm going to get your whole history, document everything we might need for prior authorization, make sure we are coming up with a treatment plan that makes sense for you. Again, that second visit where we're diving into, in my case, nutrition and starting a med. And then, if you have this as part of your existing clinic, you really want to dedicate, is this a weight appointment? Is this part of your mood check if you're managing their antidepressant? Is this part of a hypertension visit? And you get to draw the lines of what you want to combine, or if weight needs to be on its own, or if at that point you just integrate it. And then if you're doing this in a primary care setting, maybe separating this from annual physical, separating this from acute visits. Different patients are going to have different needs. So, in different clinics have different needs. So, you have to figure out what works for you and then be okay with sticking with it. So if you're integrating this, announce that you have these new services. Let your patients know, make sure your staff knows and understands, make sure that the clinic as a whole, if there's a lot of other doctors or other clinicians there, know, and let your community know. I always like to have you kind of create a little bio, explain what you do and why you do it. And then have a plan for how your obesity care is going to be separate. Again, do you have an initial intake appointment? What does it look like as you're integrating this? Okay, but let's say you don't want to integrate it. Let's say you want to go off on your own, you want to start a practice, and you don't feel like you've had any training on this. Well, one of my goals tonight is to make you feel more confident that you can indeed start a practice. And I always say business is simple. There are just two rules. The first is to make more money than your business costs to run. Some people call that a profit. And the second is that you shouldn't break any laws in the process to accomplish number one. And when you break it down into these two simple principles and you know what your core value is, decision making isn't that complicated. So again, you need to make money. That's like the first rule of business. And the second is just don't break the law, don't break the rules in order to accomplish that. So now, what type of practice do you want? Like, okay, you believe that you can do this, right? You became a doctor, you have done tough things, and if you don't believe that you can start a business, look around at some of the small businesses in your community. In my community, there are lots of dry cleaners run as small businesses. There's liquor stores, there's gas stations, there's daycares, and a lot of times the people running these businesses have just a high school degree, right? They did not get an MBA. They did not do any special training to be business owners. They just use sort of common sense and follow the rules and make sure that they are running their business in a way that they make more money than the business costs to run. So you do not need special degrees or training to be able to run a business. But what do you want your business to look like? So there's a lot of different models of what your obesity practice could look like. You could do telehealth, right? You could do completely telehealth or partial telehealth and integrate that. You may ask yourself, does insurance cover that where you're at, right? We still have pretty good insurance coverage in most places for telehealth, but some places there's more limits. Some places, I'm in Colorado, we had telehealth before the pandemic. I was doing telehealth for years before the pandemic started, and it's been covered by insurance. If you're doing telehealth, what are you going to do about controlled substances, which are probably part of comprehensive obesity care? Are you going to do any group visits? That can be a really efficient way to deliver care, can create community. Are you going to take insurance? Are you going to take insurance for everything that you do? Who's going to run the group visits? Is it you? Is it an additional staff member? If you're taking insurance, most of you are going to bill that like primary care. So your reimbursement rates are probably going to be the same. You don't need to change your taxonomy code or anything like that. Taking insurance can build a quicker panel. I've taken insurance for most of my career, and for a while I was really pushing people to take cash because I think insurance rates are really crummy right now, and we need to kind of push back against that in some ways. But right now, we are seeing an explosion of cash-based services and telehealth companies for obesity care. And so we'll get into an activity that helps explore this in a bit. But this may be a time where we need to reconsider taking insurance. Maybe that model does work. It can help you grow a panel a lot quicker. It's an easier way to network and get referrals from other clinicians and your communicators. That being said, taking insurance can be an incredibly frustrating experience. You're often underpaid, and it may not fit with the model of care you want to provide to your patients. Then you can take cash, which occasionally people have said, does that mean you actually take cash? No, no, no. That means they're paying you directly for the services. Okay. And that can be separated into two main things, which are fee for service or a membership model. There's other models, of course, but those are the main things. And fee for service just means people are paying for each individual visit. So they pay for their first appointment, then they pay for their second appointment, and you have different rates or maybe a flat rate for every time they see you. The benefit of that is you can create a super bill for your patients, and they can sometimes get that covered by their insurance by submitting it or use their HSA or FSA really easily for those services. You can also do a membership. Memberships are nice because you get a guaranteed amount every month, right? If you have 100 patients and they're all paying you $200 a month, you're making $20,000 a month, like bam, easy math. You know how much you're getting. Fee for service, the math, is going to be a little more complicated. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as well. Membership, you need to figure out what's included, how long. You can also offer packages where you have like a 6-month package for weight loss and then like a maintenance package. You can also do concierge, which people use different terms for these things, but most people use the term concierge to mean you're taking insurance, but then you're charging a membership or fee above and beyond that for potentially additional services. Other things you might want to consider with your practice, are there additional team members? Are there other clinicians you're working with? Are you working with a coach, a therapist, a dietitian, a physical therapist, personal trainer? Who else are you working with? And who else are you potentially working with long term? Or do you always want it to be a micro practice? It's just you don't want to have a bigger team. So just things to think through, right? There's no right answer here. What makes sense for you and your patients? Okay, so I said 2 rules: making money, don't break the rules, don't break the law. So when you're trying to figure out, how much money you need to charge, how to make money, you want to think of a few things. How much do you want to work? How many patients do you want to see in a week? How many are you capable of seeing? I like to go really in depth with my patients. I really get to know them. We do a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling, a lot of coaching. So I can only see so many people in a week with the style I practice. I could see a lot more, but it wouldn't be the way I want to practice, right? So, obviously you could see 30 patients a day. Is that what you want to do, right? Are you happier seeing 10? How much money do you want or do you need to make, right? Some of us have an amount we need to make. When I started my practice and I was pregnant and I just bought a house, I had a certain amount of money I needed to make, right? I had expenses, I had my loans to repay. I had an amount I needed to make, and I need to figure out how to make that work. Okay, so you find out that, and then we do some math from there. Okay. So other things you want to consider is where are you located? How much can you charge? What's insurance like there? What's your population like? What are they willing to pay? Do they want to use insurance? Are they okay with cash? What are reimbursements like? Does insurance pay pretty well where you're at? Does Medicaid pay decently where you're at or no? And what type of clients do you want to work with? Do you want to work with people who, can or are willing to pay cash, or do you want to have a broader net of patients you're able to serve? Okay, so let's look at just 2 different ways this could work out. So let's say that your goal for starting your practice in the beginning is that you want to make $15,000 a month. Okay, that's how much profit you want to bring home, pay yourself every month. And let's say the overhead for your practice, maybe the space you're renting, your supplies, your EHR, your malpractice is $7,000 a month. So we're going to add those two together, right? Because we need to gross, we need to net that amount of money, right? We need to bring in $22,000 a month before we take away those overhead. So we need to bring in 22,000 in order to make the 15,000. So if we had a membership model, we said, I feel like I could easily take care of 150 patients. I could see 150 patients, every month, give them the attention they want. How much do I need to charge? Well, then that math works out to $146 per month. So maybe you round up, you round down, but your patients need to be paying you about $146 a month for that membership model for it to be profitable. And you can do the math other ways, right? You want to make $30,000 a month, you just plug that in. Okay. Then let's look at like a fee for service model. Again, our goal, we were like, I'm going to start off with just trying to make 15,000 a month. That's my goal. My overhead's like 7,000. So I need to bring in that 22,000. And I feel like I could do 45 visits in a week, like not feel rushed, feel good about that amount of visits, get that many patients. How much do I need to make from each of those visits? So 22,000 divided by 180 appointments in the course of the month. I need to be bringing in about $122 per patient per visit. Is that doable? How much is insurance paying in my area? How much can I charge with additional services? those are things that are a little hard to share data on. Getting to know your community and getting to see insurance contracts really is the way to do that. But networking with other clinicians in your community to see what insurance rates are like are going to be helpful. But that's very reasonable. You should be able to make that much per person from insurance, or again, in a fee for service model without insurance, you could charge that much per visit or per half hour or however you want to do that. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Like that figuring this out is not super scary. It's not intimidating. You're just figuring out how much do I need to make? What's my overhead? And then how do I get there? Right. And this gives you two really clear plans of what you need to do. Okay. I need 150 members. Okay. I need 180 visits a month. Okay, so this is another little business skill that is very helpful. And I encourage you, if you are starting to think about starting your practice, to spend some time later doing a SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis is looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and strengths. And so this is kind of looking at it not just for you as a person, like, oh, like I have a really fast mile time. I look great in pink, right? Like these are not the strengths we're talking about. The strengths for you in this business. So strengths. I know a lot of physicians in the community. I think I could get a lot of referrals. Strength. I took my ABOM exam. I'm certified. Strengths. I have experience, right? Whatever. Your strengths that make you stand out as a clinician, that would make you successful at this business. Or if you already have a business, what are the strengths of the business? Maybe it has a good reputation in the community. Maybe you already have a high patient volume. Like, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses, right? So that may be like, I don't have a lot of capital. I don't have a lot of money to invest in changes. Maybe the weakness is the location. Maybe the weakness is you don't have a lot of connections. You don't have that network that is established for referrals, right? So what are some weaknesses? What are some opportunities? Gosh, this list is pretty long for us right now, right? When I started obesity medicine, it was an obscure field. It was called bariatric medicine, and it was obscure. People didn't know we existed. They thought it was very cute that I did obesity medicine. They thought it was very intriguing. No one knew what it was. Now people know who we are, what we do, right? Everyone has heard of Ozempic, right? Your hairdresser has heard of it. Your mom has heard of it. Your best friend from high school has heard of it. Everyone knows what we are and what we're doing. So the opportunity is huge, right? People want these medications, they want treatment. So what are opportunities? Patients want these medications. There's not enough prescribers. There are prescribers who don't know what they're doing because they haven't had additional training, right? So those are all opportunities. Opportunities. Like again, I know clinicians who will refer to me. Opportunities. I have a reputation, right? What are some of these opportunities? People want me to take insurance, right? Okay, we have insurance contracts. We need to ramp up taking insurance. Um, Threats. What are threats? Well, we were obscure before, right? There's a lot of competition now. Now, I don't think we should be too threatened by that for a lot of reasons. One, people want relationships with an individual doctor, right? That's an opportunity. People want to know their doctor, they want to know their clinician. That's an opportunity, relationships that they're probably not getting from telehealth. But there are a lot of big companies, right? So that is like, how do I compete against them? It doesn't mean we give up when there's threats. We just say, how do I use my strengths and my opportunities to make up for my weaknesses and my threats, right? So threats, lots of other people in the space. Threats, dealing with prior authorizations can be a nightmare. Threats, medications are expensive, right? And again, that doesn't mean that we say we can't do this. We just say, well, how do we flip that, right? So an opportunity might be, I take insurance. I have relationships with patients. Meal replacement programs, those were a mainstay of obesity medicine until a few years ago when we started to have powerful medications. But maybe this is a time that you start offering meal replacements again, because those can get patients fantastic weight loss. And so if someone can't get their medication, they can't get Wegovy, well, maybe if they haven't tried a meal replacement program, that would be a fit for them, right? Relationships with bariatric surgeons. So we're looking for these opportunities and we're saying, how do I differentiate myself from the big telehealth companies? Because there's right? How do I differentiate with relationships, with other services, with quality of care? Maybe you have additional training. You all probably have additional training, right? You either do primary care or you do OBGYN or you do mental health, right? So can you be the doctor who it doesn't just do obesity medicine, but you also have a focus on menopause. Two of the doctors in my clinic do that, and that's going incredibly well for them. Maybe you also do mental health. Maybe you treat binge eating disorder and ADHD and depression. Maybe you're also their primary care doctor. Win-win. They get to do primary care with you and see you for obesity medicine. There are not big companies that are offering that. Those are an opportunity. Those are your strengths. So spend some time working through this. This helps you clarify your path of what your business can look like and lets you focus on the positives. What do you bring to the table instead of just seeing what the other guy is doing? Because you're not the other guy. Okay, moving over to marketing, which is the other big question people have when they're starting a practice. I think it's important to realize marketing is not just advertising, right? Advertising is the commercial on TV, the commercial on your Facebook ad, the poster on the subway. That is advertising, but marketing is different. Marketing is not just about selling. Selling is trying to get someone to book an appointment, trying to buy a product, buy a service. That's not what marketing is either. Marketing is developing a long-term relationship with your consumer. You want them to know you, you want them to trust you, you want to be the go-to for what you do. And so that means networking with your colleagues. That means having things like blogs, having things like podcasts, having things like articles in your local newspaper. That means talking at the hospital and doing CME and letting people in your community, whatever that may be, whether it's more virtual or whether it's more in person, know who you are, what you do, and why you're good at it. And to figure out how to target your message, you want to think about who your ideal patient is. So, is their goal just to lose weight? Is their goal to look better? Is their goal to feel better? Is their goal to be healthy, to get rid of medications, to prevent diabetes, to live longer, to stop worrying about their weight, to have someone who understands and listens to them, to get pregnant, to get answers to why they can't lose weight? The more you tune into what is your ideal patient, right? It may not be all of these things. Maybe you're an OBGYN and you want to do this and you want to help with fertility. You want to help women get pregnant by treating obesity. Great. That's a really targeted audience, right? Doesn't mean maybe you aren't going to take care of other people, but by having that targeted audience, then you really can market directly to them and have a consumer, have a patient that loves you, thinks you're the best, and tells everyone who's just like them to go see you. The other people that you're marketing to, that you're developing a relationship with, is your referral sources, right? Those are going to be important. And you can think of referrals in the classic way, the doctor sending you a fax, but referrals can also just be people in the community who recommend you. I have a fantastic relationship with the CrossFit gym I go to. They send me patients, I send them patients that I think could use their training. It creates a wonderful community. And we both help each other grow, right? So what is your referral source looking for? Is it an orthopedic surgeon and patients need to lose weight to qualify for surgery? Is it a primary care physician or an endocrinologist who needs support helping to control diabetes with weight loss? Is it improving fertility? Is it a pulmonologist who wants to see their patients improve lung function? Is it someone who wants patients who can get more counseling? They support the meds. They're not trained themselves. They want people who can spend more time with their patients. And so you want to really position yourself as an expert that people can refer you to, which again might be traditional networking in your medical community, but might be networking on social media, developing relationships with people in other fields and industry, might be an employer who, wants patients to get access to this care. Lots of different ways that that can look. And it's going to look like different things over different time. Ideally, you're developing relationships with all those different communities. Okay. So another way to think about marketing is it's not the thing you're selling. You're selling them sort of an idea. You're selling them something they want. So this is a kind of a famous quote on this, which is people don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill. They want a 1/4 inch hole. So you can talk about the drill and how fantastic it is all day, but the person is buying it because they want the hole drilled the right way in their wall, right? Which is to say, marketing is not all me, right? It's not, I'm really good at this. You should come see me. We offer this, this, and this. It's, are you sick of being short of breath walking up the stairs? Are you tired of not being able to comfortably fit on an airplane seat? Are you frustrated that it seems like you're going on more and more medications? We have answers for you. We're going to get to the bottom of why you struggle with your weight, and we're going to offer you comprehensive, evidence-based obesity treatment, right? Something like that, right? Where like, what are we offering you? What problem are we solving for you? It's not about what services you want to offer. You are solving problems for the people referring people to you and for the patients who want to come see you. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling a little inspired. Okay, business is easy, right? Just make money and don't break the rules. But in the back of your head, you have all this other chatter, right? And it's like, oh, but like, what about the legal things? What about the accounting questions? What about taxes? What about malpractice? What about computer systems? Okay, take a breath and know that there are lawyers, there are accountants, there are insurance brokers, there are salespeople and vendors, there are medical societies, there are coaches, there are consultants, and there are peers that can help you with all of these things. You are a doctor, you're a physician, you have done harder things. You navigated med school, you passed exams, you figured out how to apply and get into residency. Like you can figure this out. And the things that you can't figure out yourself, like, Canva, which is a way you can market and create designs if you haven't played around with Canva, took me forever to figure out. So if I can't create it with a graphic design, which is just not what I'm good at because I'm a doctor, I just pay someone to make me the graphic design I need, right? Like I don't have to do it all. I just need to know what resources to use. Okay. So don't get overwhelmed in all those details. There are professionals and there are groups that can help you with that. Okay. Okay, so final thoughts. There's no right way to practice medicine. You can evolve any of these things over time. Start with a structure, whether that's internal in a practice you already have or a new practice that you're starting that works for you. Set expectations for your patients and make choices that work for you and your patients. Okay. All right. So that is the end of the formal presentation. I see some chat questions, so I will definitely go into there. If you want more of my resources on my website, which is helpyourpatientsloseweight.com, I have my 13-hour CME approved course, the Obesity Medicine Startup Course and Toolkit. I actually made that course right before Wegovy came out. So I just updated it with a 14th hour that is not part of the CME that is all about GLPs and tips and tricks, and it is gold. So this course is designed to like basically make it feel like you spent a week in clinic with us, and then you get all of our handouts from my clinic that you can use. You can put your name on it. You can't sell them to other people. You can't repurpose them, but you can use them for your patients and you can edit them for your patients. And then if you want more support, I have a 6-month mastermind. That date has not been set. It's going to start sometime in April. And then I do individual coaching as well. So that's me. That's what I do. Tonight, you get me for free. And if you're on Facebook at all, like if you ask questions in any of the obesity groups, I will probably answer the question, especially if you tag me. But let me go ahead and escape from this screen and stop sharing. I'm also going to send a resource if you do need some support. This is so one of the things I pushed the AMA to do was to create forms because a lot of people do get stuck in those legal things. And so this resource that I'm sending you here, it's part of the AMA private practice playbook. That has a lot of forms like your HIPAA form, your initiation of patient care, all of the legal stuff a practice might need, and it's like AMA vetted by their lawyers and their staff. So highly recommend that. That link is in the chat there. Okay, let's see questions. How do you practice so you're not stepping on PCP toes? That is such a great question. So if you're incorporating this, I think the question is like, are you a PCP or not, right? Are you still doing primary care, but you're incorporating obesity medicine? And there's a couple things I've always done for that. One is clarifying when I first meet the patient how they met me, right? Who referred them to me? If it was the PCP themselves, then I'm not going to step on toes, right? If it was the bariatric surgeon and the patient got referred from the surgeon from their PCP, again, like I'm not going to step on toes, right? Some people will just want to start fresh and have me do everything. And so like that's fine. And then I think it's communicating with that PCP. I like to send my first note that outlines my whole plan. And I kind of treat any of the endocrine stuff as kind of part of my thing. I think most PCPs have plenty on their plate and are happy to share. But getting to know the PCPs who are referring to you, and that's a quick phone call or quick text like, hey, I saw your patient today. Their blood pressure was looking a lot better. I decreased their med. Is that okay? Or do you want me to do this? Do you want them to come see you? I think just communicating, just like we like from any specialist, right? I think treat people how you want to be treated totally applies in medicine. So that would be my recommendation is, you're probably going to have a lot of the same people who refer to you, find out how they want you to manage that. So that's, one one of the things I would recommend there. I will say, because I have always practiced primary care as well, most of my referrals do not come from other primary care physicians. They tend to come from OBGYN, ortho, cardiology, other fields where I'm sort of an adjunct to that. So, that's something that definitely is worth navigating. Next question. I was wondering how you handle weight maintenance and following patients long term. Do you send patients back to PCP or do you continue to see them long term? And if so, how do you charge for that? Also wondering how you structure the financial aspect of this. You mentioned taking insurance. How would you structure a cash pay practice? And that was asked early on, so maybe I answered that. But in terms of maintenance, I do have a specific sort of maintenance handout I go through where I'm like, this is our goal. We're going to set this is sort of our comfortable weight that we think you're going to stay at. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to stay on your medication. You're going to do this exercise. You're going to weigh yourself this often if weighing is something they do. And if you get in sort of the yellow zone, you're going to like revisit why that's happening on your own. And if you get sort of to this red zone of this weight is, past the place we talked about, then you're going to come back for an appointment like ASAP. And I'm not going to judge you. And I'm just here to troubleshoot. And so I encourage them, to do that. And I think at that point, that's going to be up to you if you want to refer them back to primary care. And that's going to depend on the primary care's comfort with managing things like phentermine versus GLPs. They may be fine with one or the other, or they may not want to deal with any of them. And when you're billing, you can try to bill for the BMI codes and for obesity, but depending on where you're at, a lot of the country, those do not reimburse. So most of us bill by billing comorbidities. So you're treating the hypertension, you're treating the high cholesterol, you're treating the sleep apnea, you're treating the binge eating, you're treating the PCOS, you're treating the fatigue, you're treating the hypothyroidism, you're treating all these things with a comprehensive weight loss plan because weight treats all of those things. So that's how I document all of that and bill for that is I'm billing for all the reasons the weight is going to help. I know when we teach on obesity, we talk about obesity as a disease and treating the disease. But I think in the insurance world and still a lot of the medical world, the way to conceptualize it is that you're helping the patient lose weight to treat those medical conditions. And so that's the structure that we use in our clinic, is that we're using weight loss to treat these primary conditions. And then also wondering how you structure the financial aspect of this. I guess for maintenance, I mean, again, it's the same thing. Like I'm still treating all of those things they initially came in with. So I like to make sure I get a really good history of anything that's bothering the patient when they come in with that might be related to their weight. For a cash practice, like you can do this however the heck you want, right? If people are going to have super bills and they are going to try to bill their insurance, you kind of want to document it the same way, because insurance can audit you. They can request those. And so they may not pay it if you are not structuring your note in a traditional insurance format to document level of decision making. If you're doing more of just a membership or strict cash pay and you tell your patients, hey, you're on your own. If you want to try to use your FSA or HSA, you can. Otherwise, like I'm not doing insurance. I'm not doing any of it. This is how much I charge. It is what it is. Then you can do whatever you want, right? Like the patients agreed to see you and you're giving them services and you don't have to worry about it. So that makes things a little easier. Can be a little harder to build a patient base. What do you need? What info do you need for a prior auth for a patient? That's changing on a daily basis right now. So that's been super fun. It's getting worse and worse. But there is an article that myself, Dr. Fitch, and Dr. Bays wrote for Obesity Pillars. I will try to find it before the thing ends and send you the link for that, which basically is a template that you can download. It talks about what it might include. So you can use that template. But you definitely want to document BMI. So height and weight at every visit is going to be important many times for the prior authorization. You want to document what they've tried before with specific dates when possible, what medications. A lot of them are requiring failure of Ally or Orlistat at this point. So document if they've tried that, what happened, document any meds and what the side effects were, document any lifestyle programs they've done before, how long they did it, what their results were, document any comorbid conditions, document that they are currently doing or that you have counseled on 150 minutes a week of exercise, document that you have counseled on a calorie restricted diet or other appropriate diet for the patient. Those are the main things that need to be in the prior auth. And again, that Obesity Pillars article on prior authorizations has a lot of that information. They do not at this point seem to care about waist circumference or body fat. How would you bill code your own patient for weight management visit and practice after getting ABOM certified? consult, and then follow-up visits. So that's, I think, your easiest, right? If you are a primary care physician or you're an OBGYN or a cardiologist or whatever, and now you're just adding on this service, you're still just billing what you saw them for before, right? So, if you were seeing them for hypertension, you're billing for the hypertension, but now part of your plan is this comprehensive obesity care. And so that's how I bill it. I will do like hypertension, GERD, whatever as my diagnoses. And then the last one I put is their BMI. And then below that in my note, I put my comprehensive obesity plan. And I say, this is the comprehensive lifestyle plan to address the above diagnoses. So that's how I document all of that, because we know weight loss is a recommended treatment for hypertension, sleep apnea, GERD, right? So it's one of the things you're offering them as a treatment for those things. And so I think thinking of that paradigm is the easiest way to bill in an existing practice. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of questions here. Hi, how do you figure out reimbursement rates for insurance? Which CPT codes to use for reimbursement? So your CPT codes are going to be your standard for most of us. They're going to be your primary care codes. So you're still going to be using like a 99214, 99204, all of those sorts of codes. And then reimbursement rates for insurance vary widely. And there's a lot of reasons why doctors cannot share that, but it's kind of considered an antitrust issue for us to like share our rates with each other. So if you're currently employed and you can nose around where you're at and see what those reimbursement rates are where you're at, that's going to give you the best information of what it's like where you're at. And developing relationships with colleagues to find that out. But it can be really hard. Otherwise, you don't know until you get a contract from your insurance company. You can also join ACOs in your area, and they can be helpful for negotiating rates. In your experience, is it better to offer packages like 6 months at a time or go an ongoing monthly membership? I generally recommend that people start off with sort of a initial package for like 6 months for sort of like their weight loss. People are more intensive in their needs for the first 6 to 9 months and really the first couple of months. And so that's usually going to be a higher price point. And then for maintenance, most people are not going to need to see you or interact with you quite as frequently. Usually every 12 weeks is going to be sufficient for a lot of patients. And so then you can go to a lower tier. So for the membership model that I have that's just all cash, it's 6 months at one tier. And then after that, they can go to the maintenance, which is a lower tier. But if they still want like monthly visits and more intense care, then they can just stick with that higher tier. So that's a common structure for that. Can you have a concurrent insurance and cash-based business? That gets a little complicated. Probably want a lawyer to get involved in that. I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal or financial advice. But yes, there's different ways that you can have an insurance model and a cash model. And going into the intricacies of all of that would take more than the time we have. And again, may involve getting a lawyer in to write some of those contracts or help you structure your businesses. If you take insurance, how do you do an intake on an established patient? Bill a level 5 per time? Yes, we usually bill a 99215 for that and do a 40-minute appointment for an established patient. We were doing the add-on code, which I can't even remember anymore because I stopped billing it because we stopped getting reimbursed because there are those additional codes for the 15 minutes of care. But a lot of times those are not getting reimbursed. So yeah, doing a 99215 based on time is the way to usually do those. I'm obesity certified. I've been doing primary care and obesity now with a corporate. I have a 15-mile non-compete. My contract is primary care. Can I still practice obesity medicine within the compete area? That is definitely a lawyer question. It really depends on what your non-compete says. People don't always go after the non-competes. So knowing if your employer has a history of doing that, sometimes you can ask them and they're like, eh. And sometimes they're like, yeah, we're going to go after you. I've had them tell people that. It really depends on what your non-compete says. So have a lawyer look at that. A lot of times it just says you can't do primary care. So great. Or that you can't like compete. And if you're like, I'm doing cash primary care, you're an insurance company. Like I'm not your competition. But that is a lawyer question. At what point should PCP refer to obesity medicine? And at what point should obesity medicine refer to bariatric? Many patients don't want surgery anymore. Great question. So for the OMA, we're kind of launching this treat or refer. I believe that primary care physicians can do all of this if they want to. And so, I think in 10 years, primary care will be prescribing all the medications very commonly as they get more comfortable with them, more common. People are familiar with the side effect profiles. And I think it's really up to the PCP. Some people want to manage it and some people don't have the bandwidth with everything else they're doing. So it's appropriate to refer to obesity medicine whenever the PCP feels comfortable doing that. I think if someone is not having expected results, that's another great reason to refer to an obesity specialist so that we can do a deeper dive and make sure we're not missing anything. And then bariatric surgery, I think we should always offer our patients who qualify. Most of the time, if they're seeking us out or asking about medications, it's because they don't want surgery, right? And so most of the patients who come in to see me, they don't want surgery. They're coming to me for medical management. But I will offer it if it makes the most sense. If they have diabetes, if they have, a BMI greater than 35, 40, I'll say, just so you know, you do qualify for surgery. Like, what do you think about that? And then I have patients, and we'll see, I'll probably have less of it with the new meds, but with our old meds, I'd have patients I worked with for a few years and they just really wouldn't have made enough progress on their health. And I'd say, let's revisit surgery, go meet with the surgeon, see what it's about. Or patients who want that 20% weight loss, they haven't gotten it on an older medication. They can't afford the newer medication. A lot of times I refer those patients to surgery. I actually think I've referred more patients to surgery in the last 2 years than ever before because they've seen the potential of the meds. They see friends and family who are on stronger meds. They can't afford the stronger meds, and so they end up getting surgery to get those results. Thank you. Amazing lecture. I appreciate it. Question I have: how do you deal with prescribing GLP agonists and medication not covered by insurance or prior authorization versus those who do strictly cash pay? I mean, that's like the big challenge. This field used to be the funnest, kind of easiest part of medicine because we didn't have all this drama. The prior authorizations are really brutal right now. The fact that a lot of our patients don't have access right now is brutal. And I think it's just having those discussions with patients, knowing what the cash rates are, knowing some of the ways that you can potentially utilize medications sometimes from Canada can be helpful. But knowing we also have other options. So for some patients, that may mean surgery. For some patients, that may mean phentermine. I had two of my huge phentermine responders in clinic today that have had more than 20% weight loss from phentermine, and one was phentermine and one's phentermine and metformin, right? So, trying our older medications that give some people those results, they're not as consistent, right? The GLPs, almost everyone loses weight. With our older medications, it's like people are responders or not. Like maybe half the people have pretty good results. And then I think just letting people know it's going to get better. But right now, giving them what we can. And then meal replacement programs, which, we don't have a lot of buzz around right now, but that has been a mainstay of obesity medicine is low calorie diets and VLCDs. Are there a set number of visits for obesity management program and then transition to PCP? Again, that's going to be at your discretion. So you can do this however you want. You can see them forever. I have never utilized dietitians. I like to do nutrition counseling myself. Who to connect with for malpractice insurance? I recommend checking in with for some of those questions your state medical society. They often have the best local recommendations. I let me pull in the chat. This is just one broker I know, but there's different brokers. I need to track more of these. But you can find insurance brokers who can help you navigate all of that. How much do you charge for personal coaching to establish clinic? So I just changed my rates on that. If you go to the helpyourpatientsloseweight.com, if you want personal coaching, you'll submit a link and then we can chat from there. Can you put a consult code as an obesity medicine specialist if you are seeing your own patient or regular codes? So my understanding is that the consult codes really rarely reimburse. Most insurance companies are not paying those consult codes. So you can absolutely try billing those codes, but I think those have really fallen out of getting paid in the last couple of years. Which EMR would you recommend for telehealth? Healthy IE is, I think, a pretty awesome one. We use Elation, but we do primary care, so we need some of the primary care features. Charm is another one that is really popular to get started with, pretty affordable. So I would say Charm or Healthy with IE. Healthy IE are good EHRs to look into right now. PA template, yes. And if you look, if you're trying to find that PA template, before I get a chance to Google it for you, if you like Google obesity pillars prior authorization, or you go to the obesity pillars journal online, it's all free download journal, and look for prior authorization, you can definitely find that. I work for a large HMO. With the advent of GLP-1s and improved insurance coverage, have you noticed a decrease in your revenue patient volume? Our group practice culture prior to GLPs was to defer to weight management, out of pocket. Now we are expected to prescribe these medications. Many of the group's MDs have minimal experience, but are definitely prescribing when patients force their hand. We have still been growing at our clinic, but we are definitely doing a lot of networking and trying to make sure we stand out as experts in the field. We do also offer primary care. Most of our clinicians do. The only person who doesn't is our nurse practitioner. And so I think standing out in other ways is going to become more important for all of us, whether that's offering primary care as well, whether that's doing longevity or menopause or something else that overlaps well with obesity and that you're passionate and knowledgeable about. I think that can help grow your practice right now because there are going to be more people prescribing. I think being just in obesity medicine is not gonna probably not going to be a long play for a lot of people right now. I think you need to figure out what makes you stand out, because there's a lot, primary care is going to prescribe this more, and that's great, and they should. And there's a lot of telehealth companies that offer this. So you're going to have to figure out, I think, what makes you stand out. What else do you offer beyond just prescribing meds? Because a lot of people are doing that. Do you have any malpractice companies? That was another one. So I'll see if I can find a link. And again, this one I have not vetted at all, but I met them at a conference recently. And then there's a doc in California who is working on a co-op for malpractice, and I'm so excited for it. So I probably will put that in all my emails when she has that, and that's going to be awesome. Another one to look into, and I can put this in the chat, is something called Autonomy MD. If you're starting a real big practice, this is not for you, but if you're starting a side gig of telehealth, Autonomy MD is created by a physician that was just for people who want to do a little bit of telehealth on the side. It's very affordable, great place to start. Sorry, I'm still trying to look for the insurance. I'll get through all the questions and then I'll try to post those two things. If you don't mind sharing, what is the pricing? So my 6 month right now is $250 a month, and then I don't even remember what it goes to after that. I think it's $180 a month. It's going to depend where you're at, a lot. How do you manage ordering labs that aren't always covered by insurance, and how do I form contract with labs? LabCorp generally has the best cash pay prices, so that just reach out to LabCorp, and you can set up a contract for cash pay rates for labs. No, compounded medications. Asking about compounded medications. I am strongly against compounded medications. And since someone gave me the soapbox, I will take it. Compounded medications are fine. Compounded GLP-1s are not. And that's because there are no generic GLP-1s to compound. So the way other medications are compounded is there is an FDA regulated version of the medicine that's a generic, and the pharmacy can buy it in bulk, and they can do things with it to make it in a different ointment or different cream or different concentration. And that's what compounding is. What is happening with the peptides is that people are using unregulated, non-studied salts versions of these. And so they're making it out of salts, or it's bootleg version of this that's produced probably in China or India, that's coming over, that is not being supervised or approved by the FDA. So highly recommend against compounds. Your OMA president, Angela Fitch, has been strongly against it. We have position statements against it from multiple organizations at this time. You do not have a leg to stand on if you're prescribing compounds. I think you're going to have a lot of expert witnesses against you if anything happens. Cannot say enough about do not do that. Treating obesity is about treating health. When we're using unregulated substances, we are not helping people with their health. Okay, off my soapbox. So because of BMI at every visit is better to have an in-person or a hybrid, you can document that. They can tell you it. So I think that's fine for them to tell you what it is and write it there. If you don't trust the patient, you could have them take a picture of the scale. You can use remote monitoring, but I would just document it. But I don't think it needs to be in person to document that BMI. Is it possible to structure a practice with taking insurance and a membership fee? Yes, you can do that. That's what I do. There are some risks to that. I would talk with a lawyer who's knowledgeable about it if you want to do that. In the obesity space, what a lot of people do is they take insurance for, say, certain things, and then they have a package on top of it that maybe includes their InBody or their SECA or nutrition visits. And they kind of try to get most people to do this additional service and kind of make it an important part of the practice, but maybe don't require it. So that's a strategy as well. Meal replacements, there's a couple big programs. I would just reach out to them. Robard has New Direction, OptiFast. I use Optivia, which I can help you with if you want to do that one. But they say OptiFast. There's big ones. If you ever come to an OMA conference, they have all of them there that you can meet. Um, and I think there's at least a couple old lectures on the OMA Academy about meal replacement programs. Bariatrics with an X is another one. If you are not a PCP, should you refer to other specialists to help manage those patients, or do you think having additional specialists in one practice is better? I'm not sure I 100% understand the question, but I think people sometimes overthink who they need to have as part of their practice. So if you can grow a great practice and you have multiple specialists in one place, great. But if not, like don't let um that get in your way of being able to offer what you can for your patients. Is there specific training to be a coach? Or can you use that as an A-bomb? Yeah, if you're a physician, like you're a coach, right? I mean, I think that's what our behavior change is all about is coaching. So if you are trained in that, then I mean, it's just another word for coaching. There's like no regulation of the term coaching at this point in time. How to get patients to give them their accurate height, weight virtually. So you can use remote patient monitoring for that. You could supervise them do it by video if you don't believe the height they're giving, or make them send you a picture of their driver's license, which you probably should have on file anyways to confirm know who you're working with. So like hopefully their driver's license is reasonably accurate for their height. And then for their weight, again, you could use a scale that transmits, and that could be part of your program, or you could just require a patient to get it. If you really have concerns about, the accuracy of that, you could have the patient, while you're on a video encounter, weigh themselves and show you the scale. That's not something I do, but we see all of our patients in person at least once. Is there any issues getting the medications from Canada? Not really. Any good websites as examples to structure your website from micro practice for obesity medicine? You Mine's not really a micro practice, but mine's Colorado Weight Care. You're welcome to see if you like anything on ours. How do you get medication, GLP, cash pay patients? Do they contract with pharmacies or just pay out of pocket? So for the cash pay, I want to make sure I'm understanding the question, but for cash pay patients, so if you're seeing them for cash and you don't take insurance, most of the time that does not affect their ability to use their insurance for the medication if it's covered. There are starting to be exceptions of that. HMOs can be exceptions, and some insurance companies are kind of carving people out if they're not part of the plan. But most of the time, how a patient pays you does not affect their medication coverage. Any recommendations for an app or website to get information out to patients, like recipes, activity ideas, something like Body Site, or do you just email them? So we use Spruce for communication with patients. It's our phone service. It's also how we text patients. And it is awesome. I think they actually just started a referral thing. Let me put my referral link. But Spruce is great. It's our phone system, and it's how I send patients handouts most of the time. You can save all sorts of templates in it, and then you can just text it to patients in a HIPAA secure way. It becomes kind of part of your EHR. So Spruce is my favorite way. A lot of EHRs can integrate that. Healthy IE is a great way to do that as well. So lots of options, or you could just email it to them. Don't have to overthink things, especially when you're getting started. Okay, I feel like my list of things I'm supposed to put in the chat is getting long here. All right, got a couple more minutes here. I want to try to answer all your questions, but let me see if I can find this link. This one, I at least know where it's at. This is Spruce. This is our text in our phone that we love. Do you use a partner with Do you use or partner with a health coach? I've not done the health coaching things. We like I said, autonomy is one of our big values at our practice. So we like to keep everything in house, but there are lots of programs out there that do health coaching. New to starting a practice, who do I talk to or connect with to set up contracts with insurances? So you do reach out directly to the insurance companies. You can have credentialing services who will do that for you. What are the best remote patient monitoring device? So a lot of times they're done through the company. So it depends if you're going to do it on your own. Most people use a company that includes the devices. Which BMI do you use for follow-up visit initial current? Yeah, this is the debate. I think we always document that original starting BMI, and then you can also document what the current BMI is. So I would recommend both, but for sort of billing purposes, it's kind of like if someone had diabetes or they have hypertension, they still have it, right? And we would document like, A1C was 9, treated, it's at 6. So similar sort of documentation. Home scale. So the one that is, I think, the most popular for home scales amongst my colleagues right now is like, what is the name of this thing? This Renfo. This one is very popular. If you want to incorporate health coach into your obesity medicine practice, how would you get reimbursed for it from insurance too? Yeah, so most of the health coaching is done with chronic care management or remote patient monitoring. So you want to use services for that. Vital Health is an RPM program. Voila, some of you have seen this. She's the one who does the telehealth obesity chat. There's In Health, which the OMA is kind of partnered with, but I recently heard they were selling patient supplements too, so that may not be great. So those are some of the options for RPM and coaching. Nutrition courses. I don't have one I recommend. I recommend if you've never done like a college 101 nutrition course that you take that or buy a textbook and read it. I think that's a great place to start. It is on my list to make a nutrition course, but I think that's probably a year away. And then the OMA usually has a lot of great nutrition courses. So if you check out the OMA Academy, there's definitely a lot, but it's kind of like a hodgepodge. You got to piece it together yourself. Prescriptions to Canada, you can give the patient the prescription, a paper copy or a PDF, and they can send it there directly, or you can fax it to Canadian pharmacies. What's the process for an APP starting an obesity medicine practice? That's going to depend on your state and if you have the ability to practice autonomously or not. But otherwise, it's the same. If you, have full scope in your state, your practice is going to be the same. Otherwise, pretty much the same, but need to find a physician to partner with. Canadian pharmacy, Canadian insulin is the main one I use. I've heard good thing about Polar Bear Meds. I usually use Canadian insulin. I heard it's not allowed to write a prescription, so patients get it from Canada. I mean, the way that the easiest to avoid any issue is like you don't send the prescription to Canada, you give the patient a paper copy of the script like we used to do, and then they can fill it wherever they want, including Canada. Sorry if you already answered this, but where do you recommend getting more nutrition? Yeah. I do have part of that in my course, the way I counsel, which is pretty simple, but I do have that and a bunch of nutrition handouts as part of my course. Meds from Canada, I think we talked about that. Give them the script, they can submit it. What standard labs do you check? Check out the OMA algorithm for things like that. But our standard is CMP, CBC, insulin, unless we already know they have prediabetes or diabetes, an A1C, a TSH. Those are our standard labs for everyone. I am a little more skeptical of medications from Mexico. I think there's more counterfeit medications coming out of Mexico, so I recommend just the US or Canada for my patients. Virtual practice, what is the overhead? That is going to vary a lot, but your overhead can be really low. It's going to be your EHR, virtual assistant, malpractice. I mean, I think your overhead could be 1 to 2,000 for all telehealth. You could be less than that if you use something like Autonomy MD that has a little bit of a very basic EHR and has your malpractice included. I think you could have an overhead of a couple of hundred a month if you really start small. It's not going to last forever that low, but you could start with just a couple hundred a month using Autonomy MD. I think body composition scales are great. I've always loved having my InBody. But I don't think it's necessary. I wouldn't let that keep you from starting, but I do think they are becoming more relevant with our stronger medications. Canadian pharmacy already answered. Lifestyle medicine, lifestyle medicine, a lot of people get benefit from taking lifestyle medicine courses. They're very much plant-based is a big crux of that. So if you're a huge plant-based person, you might enjoy that. It definitely complements it. I haven't done the training. So if it's something that you're passionate about and you think it would add to the way you care for your patients, go for it. Canadian pharmacies, yes, they definitely accept the prescriptions and they definitely send it to the US. Body comp scales, you get what you pay for with the body comp scales. Oh my goodness, I feel like the questions are never going to end. Baseline EKG, I think that has fallen out of favor. I think the guidelines really don't necessitate that anymore. Certainly reasonable to do. But if you don't have an EKG, you're not comfortable reading EKGs, and there's patient you're worried about, send them to cardiology to get a clearance would be my recommendation. But we will sometimes use baseline EKGs for our higher risk patients, patients who maybe have a history of hypertension, who are, older. So it is nice to have, but I think that has really fallen out of favor. I don't think it's required as standard as care at all. You know what? You guys have me convinced that I've got to make a nutrition course. Dr. Paisley and I've been talking about it. Yes, you can start with autonomy MD and then transition. Labs, we do all of our labs through insurance, Canadian pharmacy, Canadian insulin again is the main one I use, though. I have some colleagues that like Polar Bear meds. Okay, I got through them all, I think. You guys have my contact information. You have the website. That's where the course is. If you're thinking the mastermind might be a fit for you, apply for that. If you want private coachings, click on that. But gosh, I feel like I answered all the questions. What more could you have? Just kidding. Super nice to meet you all. Stay in touch. Good luck. You can do this. Do what's right for you. Do what's right for your patients. Everyone's path is different. Have a good night. I smell my dinner. I'm gonna go eat it. And oh, someone's sending hearts. Thank you for the hearts. Hearts and thumbs up. That's fun. I should ask for those during the presentation.